Hi, I'm Tamara Lechner from AI for Human Flourishing, and today I am joined by Lucas Erb, who is part of the AI for Human Flourishing group, but he's also the founder of AIexperts.com. And we're here because I came across this study that's done by Shen and Tamkin. And the one liner about this study is AI makes work easier, but it also makes workers weaker. So what this study was a controlled study of 52 developers who were AI coding. And what it found was that it actually made these coders working with AI worse at their jobs. So developers who used AI actually scored 17% lower than their peers on debugging, on code reading, on conceptual understanding. So AI saved time in the generating code, but the time that was saved was eaten up by prompting well. And so, through the lens of AI for Human Flourishing, we really consider AI systems technology through the lens of protection from harm, fair AI, personal well being, productivity, growth and development, relationships, and communication. And the last one, meaningful work. And interestingly, when we played with this study, it hit 5 of those really strongly. So before I keep talking, I want to know, Lucas, what is your gut reaction to this research?
Yeah, I think it's intuitive. My gut reaction is, and super briefly on background here, like I studied computer science and I started off in big data and information, spent time as a software engineer at HP and at Meta and then at Deloitte on a number of different client projects. And I feel that I have a little bit of a say on, what it means to be a software engineer. And in particular, this one strikes me as very intuitive because what you're saying is we've given AI the control and the ability to write the code, and thereby we've removed what would have been a process of tens of hours of developers iterating and looking at code and manually producing, all these functions and algorithms that go into the end result. And that's an incredibly labor intensive process, so much so that sort of like the Wikipedia question and answer, social media site for developers, Stack Overflow. Stack Overflow used to be the biggest site in the world where a developer would Google, they'd say, I just got this error with my code. What's going wrong, right? And then another developer would have already encountered the same error and would be telling them how to solve it. This website now is practically useless. I don't mean any offense to the founders, to the executives running it. It was the best thing, to get me through college, and every other developer same. But essentially now, some of these tools have been completely replaced by AI.
Yeah, and so I have no problem personally with a tool replacing a tool. My concern, and so unlike you, who has this awesome background in technology, I'm the least technical person on this call, but the lens I always wear is how does this tech impact humans? And so I'm probably a more savvy user of the technology than most, but not at the developer level and not at the coding level. And I think what I'm interested in when I think about this study is how it might generalize to other jobs. So
Exactly.
as we consider what does this mean for a medical lab assistant who's working on genetics? Because we're seeing some really cool work in um, disease mapping and cellular mapping. And if an AI technology is doing that, how are we developing the human
Right.
capacity to check the work of the AI?
And developers may be first, but like we saw, there's this economic study from Anthropic that talks about where their users are actually using, what occupations, what professions their users are actually using the chatbot for. And developers are the first, right? They're the widest adoption because you think of, the technologists, people who love technology and are willing to plug AI into their workflow. That does not mean they're the only one, right? The bell curve we're seeing now in developer adoption, and in developer job demand, we may be seeing in all sorts of other professions as well across knowledge work. And so, what do you think? I mean, especially as we talk about bringing up the bottom rung of the ladder, right? Like, especially as we talk about you and I, we started our careers with the ability to incrementally learn on the job. And so if AI begins to augment that entire process, do humans have any way to learn?
Yeah, it's a great question. I always think about kind of going back to developmental skills. We crawl before we walk before we run. And so, at its most basic, what we're doing is taking away crawling and walking and going right to running for the technology. But the human still needs to go through those developmental phases in order to get to running. And so I think that's the real productivity paradox that a short sighted leader might say, yes, outsource this to code, outsource this to an LLM, let AI do this because it's just faster and I need to make more widgets to sell them more quickly. Um, but I think the long thinking leader is thinking differently. They're thinking about the career progression of the humans on their team and how to both be productive in the short term, but also in the long term. What happens when the tacit knowledge, so that's the knowledge that those workers aren't getting to use anymore. And so, like a muscle, it atrophies, it goes away. And then when it is needed, so let's say there's a power outage and they have to do this manually and there's nobody left to do it. That's the problem that I see. But I'm curious from your lens, like what am I missing here?
No, I totally agree. I've heard a common rebuttal to this that like other technology revolutions, think the calculator or the typewriter,
Hmm?
that those will be mirrored in what we're seeing with AI. But what that leaves out is that, the typewriter and the calculator were tools to accelerate a pre-existing knowledge of how to do math or how to write, right? In the brain of the human being using these tools, these were just tools to accelerate what you were already understanding how to do within your own brain. AI, by its very nature, is not that. AI skirts around the brain entirely and begins to execute the work. And so we not only need better tools, like let's just say for developers and for managers, we need better tools to show the user what the AI is doing, right? So that they actually are still managing and actually still considering each step of the process to approve that it's going in the right direction. But then we also need, to your point, we need better tools for people to actually be learning. And somehow you need to be wrestling with something other than just, did the AI pass this test case or not? Right? Did the AI pass the test case by rewriting the test case entirely and then faking it? Because
Yeah,
that
yeah.
happens too, right? And so we need much better ways to check and then also to teach humans as they're using these tools.
Yeah, I love that. And I think what I heard is that not only do we have this invisible atrophy that I was talking about, that managers don't see in the metrics yet. And then by the time it surfaces, there's like this missing link to fix it. So that's one tension, but we've got speed versus learning. So is it more important for us to be fast if the human can't check the work because we no longer have somebody who has that skill on the team? It's about autonomy also versus competence. So yeah, we may have now given somebody autonomy to run together with an AI to do something, but does either the AI or the human have the competence to do this? And whose fault is it if there is a skill degradation that humans lose over time? And then finally, I'm hearing us talk about short term metrics versus long term capacity. And I think that's really important for leaders because sometimes it is the short term, like that sprint burst, that really matters. Um, but one of the things, again, this 17% competency decline in the humans, if they're outsourcing their tasks to an AI system, seems to be really problematic to me.
Yeah. I agree. I think it is problematic. I think what's even more problematic, I just feel like I'm peeling back a deeper layer, almost philosophically, about where this is all headed. And what we're doing is we're relinquishing human control. So it's not just the learning, but it does feel as though once you get past this state of, okay, now my AI agents can go and produce the code for me, and all I have to do is check their work at the end product. I become a manager, no longer the core producer. I'm a manager now.
Yeah.
Once you get past that point, and especially once that point is reached in every other profession, not just software, I feel like we're also conceding a core part of the human experience, right? The learning and development, the skills building, the joy that I get out of work as I grow as an individual. There's a number of famous developers online that are sort of musing about the same thing, right? Like we saw DHH, who's the famous inventor of Ruby on Rails, 6 months ago was saying, this AI for code thing, it's really not that great. Use it a little bit here and there to fix your bugs, but you can't trust it. 6 months later has walked back that statement with a big post about how frequently now he himself and his team are using AI for code and how it's better than him. The same thing happened from Linus Torvalds, the inventor of Linux, goes down and says, "Oh my goodness, this thing is better than me." Like it's quite literally everybody
Yeah.
was amazed because in his commit message using Google's latest dev tool, he said, "Is this much better than I could do by hand?" Yes, it is. And
Yeah.
so these are the best programmers in the world.
Yeah. Well, and I think that to kind of summarize what we've been talking about, on your team, you don't have the best programmers in the world. You've got some great humans. But if the researchers that did this study call this the supervision gap, where AI shifts our role from creator to supervisor. And we've all had that supervisor, that manager that doesn't actually have the skills, whether those are the people skills or the communication skills to manage us well. And I think that's the danger that we are plummeting towards if leaders don't really think about the 6 patterns that were found in this study. And I'm not going to go into them all right now. We're going to plop this study into the comments so that people can look at it. But there was really only one style of leading and working together, humans and AI, in a synergistic or symbiotic way that really worked well for an organization. And so I think the question I'll leave our audience with is, how is your organization designing AI and the AI systems in your workflows to protect skill development? And if you're not thinking about this yet, I'm going to suggest you should be.